She had overcome addiction, found a new life and a new love.
She was doing a lot of things that she never got the chance to do.
She loves him a great deal.
She really saw a bright future.
But now the darkness has swallowed her again.
She just disappeared in the middle of the night.
Her phone just kept going to voicemail.
Had she fallen back into the life she'd fought to escape?
Plenty of people make this attempt and have relapses.
It was so hard for her.
Them deep, dark places is hard to climb out.
Or was it a monster no one expected?
You owe some people an explanation.
I just couldn't believe it.
Because I really thought that I knew him.
November 13th, 2008. It's Thursday morning in Rock Island, Illinois, one of the Quad Cities that bracket the banks of the Mississippi as it flows between Illinois and Iowa.
The Quad Cities are Rock Island and Moline on the Illinois side, and Davenport and Bettendorf across the river in Iowa.
It just seems like one big city. Population-wise, we're probably at about 300,000.
Yet it still retains that small-town Midwest feel.
It's a good place to live, good place to raise a family.
The Quad Cities, to me, is just real quiet.
But the mist has barely burned off the river that quiet morning when Diamond Young gets an unexpected call at 7:15.
I answered the phone,
Hello?
and it was my niece's voice.
Diamond? Grandma's not here.
What do you mean she's in there?
I woke up and she was gone.
The little girl lives with Diamond's mother, 50-year-old Robin Young.
Is Papa there?
Papa is what the little girl calls her grandmother's boyfriend, 59-year-old Chuck Harris.
She was calling me from Chuck's number.
Robin's granddaughter said that Charles had come early to pick her up and take her to school.
He would do that occasionally. He had a very good relationship with the granddaughter.
With Chuck there, Robin's daughter breathes a sigh of relief.
I'm like, maybe she got called into work, and she called Chuck and had Chuck come over.
Robin was a certified nursing assistant, so she sometimes got called in on short notice.
I'll call Grandma at work and see what's going on. Papa can take you to school.
But even after Diamond reassures her niece that everything is okay, there's a nagging worry at the back of her mind.
Robin had some difficulties earlier in life that she was working through.
She had a rough past, right, with drugs?
I had saw her relapse quite a few times.
Mama, where are you?
The biggest fear when a loved one relapses is that it could be the last time.
Call me when you get this.
Chicago native Robin Young was known for her loving, outgoing personality.
She was a lot of fun to be around. My mom was real spunky. I used to call her a firecracker.
And she shared an especially close bond with her two children.
I was the second child. I have an older brother.
They had a great relationship. She was a good mom.
The bond between Robin and her children's father wasn't as lasting, though.
They separated when I was 16. Me and my brother watched them try to make it work, but after a while, it just became too much for everybody.
In the aftermath, Robin's life imploded. To deal with the pain, she turned to drugs.
She definitely tried to hide it and tried to keep it together as much as she could, but we knew something was going on.
Things got even worse when Robin met a man named Omar Weeks.
There was already some drug history before them, but they just weren't good for each other.
Omar got Robin hooked on crack cocaine.
To watch her go from being such a strong person who could hold it down to, that was hard to watch.
Robin did try to kick the habit.
She went to treatment multiple times. She did.
Usually, she'd go into rehab whenever Omar was in jail.
She would get herself together. And then when he would get out, she would like relapse.
It's lighted. When people are in dark places, sometimes it's kind of hard to get out.
But in 2005, when Omar went to jail for more than 3 years, Robin tried to make a clean break.
I was living in Rock Island, so she came, stayed with me for about 3-4 weeks, and she got her an apartment.
Quiet life in the Quad Cities was the change she needed.
She was doing good. She was in a good place.
She came here and got her life together.
Robin took classes to become a certified nursing assistant.
I remember her being nervous because it had been so long since she had been to school.
She got her certification and a job at a local nursing home.
She took a lot of pride in her job. She took very good care of the patients.
She just generally is a nurturer.
That same nurturing spirit showed in Robin's loving relationship with her granddaughter.
I think it speaks volumes that she took her granddaughter in and allowed the granddaughter to live with her.
I believe that my mom felt like she could right some wrongs with me, with my niece.
She was making the most out of her second chance.
Robin also opened herself up to love again with a man named Chuck Harris.
He was a really nice guy, nice-looking guy, clean-cut, very friendly.
Like Robin, Chuck was a Chicago native who'd come to the Quad Cities looking to start over.
He had a long history of drug abuse.
They met in Narcotics Anonymous.
They had some of the same struggles.
And like Robin, he'd turned his life around.
Charles worked at a treatment and rehabilitation facility in Davenport.
He was down to earth. He was quiet. He seemed like he was a humble guy.
They were good with each other. They were real cute together.
Chuck also helped Robin take care of her granddaughter.
She called Charles her papa. It was always them three together.
It seemed like everything was going great.
Big rainbow flower.
He was happy and she looked very happy.
So when her niece calls early on the morning of November 13th,
Grandma's not here.
Robin's daughter Diamond isn't initially alarmed.
Papa can take you to school. I'll find out where Grandma is.
Okay.
Gets off the phone with Diamond. Charles takes her to school.
Diamond figured that her mom had just gotten called into work early and slipped out before her granddaughter woke up.
When I got off the phone with her, I kind of laid back down because, again, it was early in the morning.
But Diamond quickly gets up again, now racked with worry.
What she said registered to me like my mom wasn't there all night.
Robin just would not leave that child alone overnight.
Mom!
After years of struggling with addiction, 50-year-old Robin Young had finally turned her life around.
She started over, just feet hitting the pavement. She just took off.
She was taking care of her granddaughter, her son's daughter.
I'm drawing a huge rainbow flower.
She had a good job.
And she'd found love with a new boyfriend, Charles Harris.
It seemed like they was in a good place.
But now Robin has disappeared.
Robin's granddaughter woke up and saw that her grandmother wasn't home, which was very unusual.
While Robin's boyfriend Chuck takes the 10-year-old to school, Diamond desperately tries to reach her mother.
There's no way that Robin would just take off and leave her granddaughter.
Mama, where are you? Call me when you get this.
her phone just kept going to voicemail. And so I called her job. They said she wasn't there.
Diamond was very concerned.
I done contacted everybody that I know that would even know anything about my mom.
Even more odd, when she tries to follow up with Chuck, she can't get a hold of him either.
Called him like 3 times and he never answered.
Unable to reach Chuck, Diamond goes to her mother's apartment.
Mom!
I went over and kind of looked around to see if was her purse gone or her little wallet.
The wallet is there.
Weird.
But Diamond notices that some things are missing.
Her debit card wasn't in it.
Robin's cell phone was also nowhere to be found inside the apartment.
Is it possible Robin had run off without telling anyone?
Robin had a history of drug addiction, so a relapse wasn't out of the question.
However, Diamond can't shake the feeling that this isn't drug-related.
To just disappear, she would never do that.
Diamond couldn't help but think that her mom may be in real trouble.
After searching her mom's apartment, Diamond picks up her niece from school.
I took her back to my mom's house, and I was asking her, what was she doing yesterday?
The little girl says her grandmother had been at work when she got out of school on Wednesday.
Charles picked her up from school, brought her home, then left because he said he wanted to get some rest before he had to go into work that night. About 8:30, Robin comes home.
I'm sure it's missing. I'm looking at it right now. It's not here.
My niece said when she came in, he was arguing with somebody on the phone.
But not long after arriving home, according to her granddaughter, Robin had abruptly left.
You go ahead and go to bed now, sweetie. I'll be back in a little while, okay?
Okay.
What now?
She said as my mom was leaving, she got to arguing on the phone again.
But who was the person on the other end of the phone?
If Robin had relapsed and started taking drugs again, maybe she had gotten into some kind of trouble.
I just had no idea who we were dealing with.
After arranging a sitter for her niece, Diamond drops by Chuck's apartment across the river in Davenport, Iowa.
I still have not heard from him. Nobody's answering his door, so I'm knocking on the neighbor's door. And the woman that lived across from him was just like, have you heard anything?
Chuck told me Robin's missing.
Where?
This morning.
According to Chuck's neighbor, after taking Robin's granddaughter to school, he came home, but left again quickly.
Chuck told his neighbor that he was going to go looking for Robin. Then the neighbor told Diamond there had been no sign of him since.
I thought maybe something happened to them both. Like, he must have went and tried to get my mom, and something happened to them.
Diamond goes to the police and reports her mother missing.
They issued a be on the lookout for Robin, Chuck, and both of their cars and passed that information along to the local news media.
They also contact the police in Davenport.
Once Davenport police learned the situation, they headed over to Chuck's apartment to do a welfare check.
The search reveals no clues about Robin or Chuck's disappearance.
There was also no obvious indication of a struggle inside Charles's house.
There's no indication that Chuck has been back since that morning either.
With the information that both Robin and Charles were missing, we felt pretty strongly that something serious had happened.
When detectives go to search Robin's apartment, they find the first real indication that she might be involved in something dangerous.
The police found several 9mm cartridges hidden inside Robin's apartment.
We didn't find any firearms in the residence.
Maybe she'd taken the gun with her for protection.
Check this out.
But where could she have gone? Detectives believe they may be able to find out.
Look, no ATM card.
Her debit card was missing.
We contacted her bank and subpoenaed the information for her bank account.
It's a very good tool to track the movements of an individual.
Thank you.
When detectives get the information from the bank, it shows that Robin, or whoever has her card, is on the move.
The card is being used traveling across Illinois.
There was money being withdrawn on the south side of Chicago.
Was it possible Robin had relapsed and fallen back into her old life?
She loves Chicago, you know, that's where she grew up.
It's also where Robin's old boyfriend, Omar Weeks, lived.
Maybe he had gotten out of jail and lured her back into her old life.
Or was the trail to Chicago a dead end? While waiting on more information from Robin's bank, a man calls the Davenport police with another lead.
He tells us that he was walking and he passed by the vehicle that he saw in a news story.
Our patrol officers respond. They look inside the vehicle and they see a female slumped over in the back seat.
The vehicle was opened to see if she needed medical assistance.
As soon as they opened the door, officers realized they were too late.
According to the National Institutes of Health, more than half of the 5 million American drug users who receive addiction treatment are likely to relapse or overdose later. Overdose deaths are also on the rise in the U.S. In 2020, more than 93,000 drug users died of an overdose, up 30% from the previous year. 5 days after Robin Young disappeared, detectives in Davenport, Iowa believe they found the 50-year-old nursing assistant's body.
An unnamed person watched the news earlier that night, sees the vehicle, and calls 911 to report the vehicle.
In the back seat of the car, laying face down behind the front passenger seat, was a body.
Detectives are fairly confident that the dead woman is Robin.
The body was in her vehicle, the clothing matched.
But despite the demons in her past, detectives quickly realize Robin's death was no overdose.
They see a small puddle of blood underneath her head.
She'd been struck in the head several times.
But detectives doubt that she had been killed in the car.
We observed she had a little bit of dust on her back.
Whoever put her there dragged her body for a while and then placed her in the vehicle.
Hoping to locate a witness, detectives fan out and start knocking on doors.
It's an older, established neighborhood, so people noticed that this car was sitting there.
Detectives are still talking to neighbors when Robin's daughter Diamond gets word that her mother may have been found.
My friend called me and said that she just read a story online that said they found the woman's body in the car. And so I called 911. And the woman said, "Miss Young, I'm so sorry nobody has come to tell you yet." And I lost it. Like everything in me just came out. I couldn't believe she was gone.
Once her daughter makes a positive identification, the medical examiner conducts an autopsy and confirms that Robin's death was a homicide.
Robin died of blunt force injuries to the head.
She had some defensive wounds on her hands and arms.
In addition, the toxicology results find no evidence that Robin was on drugs when she died.
The only thing she had in her system was caffeine.
Despite fears that she'd relapsed, Robin had remained committed to her recovery.
But now that it's clear Robin has been murdered, one question remains.
Who would want to do her like this?
There was no sign at the crime scene of Chuck Harris, Robin's boyfriend, who also disappeared shortly after she did.
Nobody knows where Chuck is.
Robin's daughter worried that Chuck may have gone looking for her mother and met the same horrible fate.
Detectives get a warrant and return to the apartment where Robin's boyfriend lives to conduct a second, more thorough search.
During that first search, they were looking strictly for the person, and that's it.
In a search warrant, you're looking for evidence of a crime, and that could be anything, from the smallest item to looking for an actual murder weapon.
This time, detectives do find a small amount of blood.
We located some blood on the bathroom floor. The blood was collected and sent to the state lab.
But is the blood Robin's or Chuck's?
As much as Chuck cared about my mom, he would be trying to figure out what's going on. So I'm even thinking like maybe they got him too.
One thing is certain though. After running Robin's ex-boyfriend Omar Weeks' name through the database, detectives know he isn't her killer.
Diamond had mentioned Omar and his trouble with the law when she reported her mother and Chuck missing.
It turned out Omar was actually still in prison at the time of Robin's murder.
With Omar ruled out and still no sign of Chuck, detectives reach out to his co-workers at the rehab center.
Detectives wanted to find out if anyone at work had seen or heard from him since he and Robin disappeared.
Chuck's manager tells detectives they've been worried because he hasn't been in over the last several days.
He built a good rapport with the clients, and he had a good rapport with all the staff members there.
According to one co-worker, Chuck had an especially good rapport with one staff member, a young woman named Katrina Lawrence.
We were told that they had a father-daughter relationship, that she looked up towards him and he kind of looked after her.
Although she also says she sensed that there may have been more to the relationship.
I mean, it just doesn't look right to me.
What do you mean?
She thought Chuck and Katrina were having an affair.
The way she be hanging on them and flirting.
Detectives investigating the murder of Robin Young have learned that her missing boyfriend, Chuck Harris, may have been seeing another woman on the side.
He was very close with the woman he worked with at the rehab center.
It just doesn't look right to me.
One of their co-workers even suspected that he and the woman had a sexual relationship.
But when detectives bring 23-year-old Katrina Lawrence in for questioning, she denies there's any sort of romantic relationship.
Seems like you were pretty close.
Who told you that? We're just friends. That's all.
So where were you last Wednesday night?
I was at work.
Katrina tells detectives she works third shift at the rehab center.
It's a place where people with drug and alcohol problems go, and they need around-the-clock employees there.
However, an alibi isn't all that Katrina offers them.
Chuck was supposed to work too, but he never showed.
He called into work and said he was sick.
And when we found out that he had called in sick that night, it immediately raised some red flags to us.
On the evening Robin disappeared, Chuck had told her granddaughter that he was going into work.
So when's the last time you heard from Chuck?
The next morning, I saw him at the school.
Her children go to the same school that Robin's granddaughter goes to. So as she's taking her children to school, she sees Charles dropping off Robin's granddaughter.
He say anything to you?
Not much. He was still sick.
He tells her that he's gonna go back home and go to bed.
But detectives wonder if he'd really been sick at all.
Arguably something had happened that changed his plans.
Hoping to learn more, detectives pull Chuck's phone records, which reveal that Katrina and Chuck had a long phone conversation on Thursday morning.
The phone call was right around 15 minutes.
Katrina hadn't said anything to detectives about the phone call when they interviewed her.
However, Chuck's phone records also reveal that Chuck made 2 separate phone calls to Robin on Wednesday night, one at around 8:30 and another about an hour later.
Those calls coincided with Robin's granddaughter hearing her argue with someone over the phone.
Chuck's phone records don't offer detectives any clues as to his whereabouts, however.
There hadn't been any activity on Chuck's phone since Thursday, the day after Robin disappeared.
However, the phone records do reveal that Robin and Katrina weren't the only people he'd been in contact with before going silent. He'd also called a woman named Marilyn Black.
Charles had talked to Marilyn on the 13th in the early morning.
Detectives believe that Robin's murder happened sometime late on Wednesday, the 12th.
Telephone records linked Marilyn with Charles after Robin's death. So we brought her down to the police department.
Well, what exactly is your relationship with Charles?
I guess you can say we hung out.
When we sat down with Marilyn, she was very evasive.
But when detectives press, Marilyn eventually admits that her relationship with Chuck was physical.
Marilyn knew that Charles was with Robin as well. She considered herself kind of a side girlfriend of his.
He would call her and they would get together and meet.
She says she hasn't talked to Chuck in a couple of weeks.
She denies any phone calls between the two of them on the 12th and the 13th. Detective Noonan shows her, hey, we have the phone records. We know how many times he called you.
Okay, he called me. So what?
What did you talk about?
I don't remember exactly.
You could tell that she was trying to protect Charles in some way.
The detectives keep pushing.
She lied and denied it for quite some time. And then finally,
she was taking care of her
able to get from her
son
was that he came over to her residence about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning on the 13th. He gave her $20, said, this will be the last time you see me.
Did he say why?
She admitted he told her that he and Robin had been arguing, and he told her that something went very wrong.
He wouldn't tell me what it was about.
But she does say that something Chuck had told her in the past made her fear the worst.
He would tell her that when he got mad, he would turn into Chucky.
Chucky?
You know the dolls in the movies, the ones that come alive?
The one that kills people?
Yeah.
He portrays himself to the outside world as a very quiet, respectful person, but we really start realizing how violent and dangerous he really is.
But it's not until they pull Chuck's criminal records that detectives learn the staggering truth.
Charles Harris had a very violent criminal history.
His problems extended beyond drugs.
He had killed before.
Detectives in Davenport, Iowa have just discovered that Charles Harris, the boyfriend of murder victim Robin Young, has a long criminal record.
In 1986, Chicago police had charged Chuck with killing his girlfriend.
She tried to end the relationship, and Charles kept stalking her. And then one night, Charles climbed in a window, and he stabbed her to death.
Charles was convicted of voluntary manslaughter and served a little over 3 years before being released on parole.
4 years later, he was arrested again.
He had another very violent domestic assault in the Illinois part of the Quad Cities.
1994, he's married. His wife wants a divorce. She gets a protective order. He continually violates the protective order. And then one night, He comes in and he severely beats her.
She spent some time in the hospital. It was bad enough that I think if somebody hadn't got her, she probably would have died.
He's charged with attempted murder. He's convicted. He gets a 16-year sentence on that charge.
Released after 10 years, Chuck was soon in trouble again.
In 2005, he is dating another woman. That relationship goes badly. He breaks her arm.
He had a very, very violent history, particularly when it came to women. With every relationship that he had, where the girlfriend wants to break it off, and as soon as that happens, Charles reacts violently.
But while detectives believe Robin may be the latest victim of Chuck's violence, they don't have a clear picture of what unfolded until a woman named Charlene Tate comes forward.
Charlene's a mutual friend of Robin and Charles.
You said you have some information for us. What kind of information?
It's just some things that Robin had said to me. She was worried about Chuck.
Robin told Charlene that Charles was becoming very possessive, very jealous. He kept asking her questions about money, wanting to know how much money she had.
My mom was constantly getting raises at work. She was such a good worker. So at one point, she was making more money than him.
According to Charlene, Robin was also afraid Chuck had started using drugs again.
I'm not sure if he relapsed. I do remember her saying that he was displaying some behaviors that she hadn't seen from him before.
She was starting to see what Charles was and what he was about, and she realized, hey, I'm a stronger woman now. I don't need this guy.
She'd worked so hard. The last thing she needed was Chuck dragging her down.
Robin told Charlene that she was going to end the relationship.
Did she tell you what she was planning to do?
She mentioned something about a restraining order.
There was also
Any
no
woman
obvious
that talks
indication of a
about getting
struggle
a
inside
restraining
Charles'
order
house.
isn't just because of verbal argument, it's because of something physical.
Charles Harris is a person whose way of solving problems is through violence, certainly when it comes to women.
It's not enough for an arrest warrant, but detectives do obtain a warrant to detain Charles Harris as a material witness.
A material witness warrant is a warrant for the apprehension of somebody who cannot be served with a subpoena. With Charles Harris, he was one of the last people to see Robin alive, so we can compel him to come in and we can ask questions.
But first, detectives will need to find him, and they have a pretty good idea where to look.
It was known Charles Harris was from Chicago, and Robin Young's bank card was being used in that area.
The days following her disappearance, the bank card was used 12 times.
I called a couple of the convenience stores that the card was being used at to pull the surveillance tape.
Oh, smart.
And the video leaves no doubt about who has Robin's debit card.
That video showed the person using her ATM cards in Chicago.
You could clearly see that it was Charles Harris.
I needed my mom. I knew I needed her, but when she passed away, that just took everything. It just really just destroyed me, and I did not know how much. And then to know that she was taken by the hands of somebody who claimed to love her, who sat in your house, who just betrayed herself as somebody else. I think that's what hurt the worst.
Detectives investigating Robin Young's murder have uncovered evidence that her boyfriend, Chuck Harris, is likely the one who killed the 50-year-old nursing assistant.
He had my mom's debit card, and he was using her debit card.
Detectives had surveillance video from a Chicago convenience store that showed Chuck using the card.
He walks into the gas station, goes right to the ATM, take money out of her account.
In the week following Robin's murder, Chuck had used the card at several locations on the south side of Chicago.
So that bank card assisted us in not only proving that he was using the card through surveillance videos, but also helping us track down where he was at.
3 weeks after the murder, Chicago police track him down.
They locate him on December the 2nd, driving in the city of Chicago.
Vehicle takes off, leads him on a pursuit.
Eventually, more units arrive and manage to cut him off.
He abandons the car and leads him on a foot chase.
Charles takes off running.
That's when his luck truly ran out.
A U.S. Marshal that's leaving his residence to go to work turns and looks and sees Charles Harris running from the police.
After a quick tackle by the off-duty marshal, police take Chuck into custody.
He was in the Chicago Police Department's lockup, so we went down there.
You owe some people an explanation. Yeah. Especially one little 10-year-old girl.
Faced with the reality of what he'd done to Robin and her granddaughter, Chuck agrees to talk.
He looked completely defeated.
His explanation was that Robin had told him their relationship was over the afternoon on the 12th. She told him to get out and that he went home.
But according to Chuck, Robin had showed up at his apartment later that night.
Apparently, that's where Robin went after she sent her granddaughter to bed.
He said as soon as she came over, they started to argue.
We were arguing about money. That's all we were arguing about.
According to Chuck, the argument that night had turned violent.
What happened?
She hit me with something.
Charles claimed that Robin hit him over the head with a pipe.
What happened after she hit you?
I hit her back.
It's a very similar story to Chuck's previous attack on his ex-wife.
These two situations are almost exactly the same. There's an argument that goes too far, hits her, and blames it on the woman.
But no matter how much he spins the story, detectives consider it a confession.
They charged him with first-degree murder.
I believe he couldn't handle the fact that Robin was breaking up with him.
It's not here.
So he decided to lure Robin to his apartment.
I think what happened was when she tells him we're done, Charles takes her debit card.
It's not here.
That was his way of setting the trap.
She demands it back. He says, I'm going to give it to you, but you got to come over here and get it.
Okay, I'm coming.
She hangs up the phone and tells her granddaughter, I'll be right back.
Bye, I love you.
But she'd never come back from Chuck's apartment.
He hit her over the head 2 or 3 times.
He then put Robin's body in the back of her car, drove away from his place, and left her there.
Why he picks that location, I don't know. How he gets back to his apartment, he could have walked.
The next morning, he'd stopped off at Robin's apartment as if nothing had happened.
It seemed that by pretending he'd just gotten off work and taken Robin's granddaughter to school like usual, Chuck was trying to set up an alibi.
Then he'd left town.
He fled to Chicago, where he can blend in and feel safe.
Now, though, he's back in Iowa and facing a murder charge.
We were ready to go to trial. It was a very good case.
But a jury will never hear it. On June 2nd, 2009, the day Chuck's trial is supposed to begin, the defense and prosecution agree to a plea deal.
The prosecuting attorney has to look at what is best for the case and what's best for the family, what's best for public safety.
You have to consider a plea as a guarantee.
Under the terms of the plea, Charles Harris is sentenced to 45 years in prison.
He'll be 84 years old by the time he's eligible for parole.
That's about as close to a life sentence that you can get.
It isn't enough for Robin's daughter.
She's never coming back. So even with them catching, he's been to prison so many times, I don't even feel like that's punishment for him.
But there is some solace that at least he will never get another chance at life, which is exactly what he took from Robin.
So sad that somebody who had a rough life finally got it back together, and then this happens.
She was working, doing everything
even
right,
suspected
and
that
fell in
he
with
and
the
the
wrong
woman
guy.
had a sexual relationship.
But even a ruthless killer can't diminish all that she overcame.
Her story always makes me just feel like even when I feel like giving up, don't, because she never did. I don't know anybody that was more proud of her than I was. My mom was a great person.
There was no way for her to know that a seemingly friendly acquaintance would do her such harm, that her willingness to open her door to a perceived friend would lead to her demise. All his years, bad, truly horrible, happened to nice people. That, after all his years, was still the saddest, most unshakable truth about his job. Otter leaned back in his creaking chair, the familiar hum of the precinct office settling around him. Another case closed. Another monster removed from the bizarre tapestry of Port Plankton society. He glanced at his desktop office. On it, Penny had helpfully and annoyingly put a sticky note that read, "Next case. A serial pickpocket who exclusively targets mime artists. Get ready for the silent scream of justice, Finn." On Falcord, Mendiefil. Finn sighed. The universe was already lining up another uniquely infuriating challenge for him. He would have it any other way. Gunikner. The smoke, the suit, and the untouchable armchair. Ona traumatized. The municipal township of Plum Creek, New Jersey, was not generally known for its high-stakes drama. Commandee, blotter, consisted of rogue raccoons, Reichel, bin. Municipal disputes over the height of backyard hedges, and the occasional teenager attempting to skateboard down the library steps with Grotalt, with predictable gravity and enforced the results. Itbentians Day, 2011. A day that was supposed to be dedicated to overpriced roses, questionable chocolate-covered strawberries, and mild indigestion. Instead, it became the day the sky over Plum Creek turned the color of a bruised plum. Army traumatized said. At exactly Bon Barmichin van Mame. The local emergency dispatch received a call from a neighbor who reported that the residence at Bonmihai Maplewood Lane was currently imitating a fairly active volcano, bossing dicing in ban. In flames sint, Finchley Tayarkais. The flames, the kolkaized, according to the caller, were reaching heights that singed the undercarriages of passing commercial aircraft. Ulder Finchseen. Pump Creek Volunteer Fire Department was the first on the scene. Chief Pendleton was a man who lived for the smell of damp ash and the satisfying thud of a heavy axe against dry cedar. Wensley men said. He got a brawny, a basement. Mishap, and backyard, Barnap barbecue, gone rogue. But as he pulled up to the Maplewood residence, his mustache twitched in a manner that usually indicated trouble. Onfritized. We gawked a fully involved structure, soer. Pendleton roared into his radio, adjusting his helmet, which was slightly too large, and gave him the look of an energetic metallic mushroom. One, hurriedly. Wheezing. And the garage. No vehicle in the driveway, but in this line of work, we assume everyone is home, probably taking a very poorly timed nap. Omener Kinban, at Omen West, who either quite traumatized. Pendleton S. Crew, West, a hearty, though worked, at Mot after the local auto parts store, and the town's premier artisanal cheese boutique, charged into the house. Alles licht again, in Trombai and Offerby lichtlet. They were immediately met by all thick and unyielding, that it felt less like air and more like trying to inhale a fleece blanket that had been soaked in kerosene. Matist. Inside, the world was pitch black, save for the angry orange glow radiating from the living room. It was a hot, mean fire, the kind that ate drywall for breakfast and spat out plaster dust. Onnatal. But as the crew swept their hoses through the gloom in the center of living room floor, there, headlamps caught a shape in the center of the living room floor, oddly bent. "Hold the water," yelled firefighter Barnaby, pointing a gloved finger through the haze. "We've got a well. It looks like a department store mannequin." Collision. A mannequin. Organized. With the frantic, organized chaos of angry hornets. They tried their best, on Matide. And oxygen, with a desperation that did credit to their training, a grim reality, was already painted on the victim SS face. Or rather the lack of reality. The heat had been merciless, grating, traumatized. Watching from the curb, his hand shoved deep into the pockets of a trench coat that had seen better decades, was Detective Inspector Reginald Reggie Potts. Reggie was a man of quiet, almost stubborn dedication. Only he spent 25 years with the Middlesex County Prosecutor's office, during which he had developed a face that looked like it had been carved out of a dry turnip, and a philosophy that could be summarized as: people are generally ridiculous, but they shouldn't be allowed to kill each other. Unbintily traumatized. "Reggie," still Chief Pendleton said, trundling over and wiping a thick layer of soot from his forehead, leaving a streak that made him look like a theatrical pirate, or a bad one. "Looks like a tragic accident, probably an electrical short in the holiday lights she forgot to take down, or maybe a toaster that harbored a grudge." Onto immediately. He stared at the house. He walked through the damp lawn, stepping over yellow hoses that hissed like angry snakes, and crossed the threshold into the ruined foyer. Quilled, I lie, traumatized. The interior of Bonmihai Maplewood Lanes was a drywall was blackened and peeling, hanging down in charred ribbons like the decorations of some extremely depressing birthday party. Yet, as Reggie looked around, he noticed something. Making Watley get. His voice a gravelly baritone that sounded like two bricks being rubbed together. "Does your wife keep the house clean?" Pendleton replied, blinking through his soot-crusted eyelashes. "If there's a speck of dust on the mantel, Mott hear about it for 3 business days." Waiting Diskin, Reggie muttered, gesturing to the kitchen. "The living room. The spice rack is alphabetized. The copper pots are hanging by size. There is no clutter, no piles of mail, no dishes in the sink. This of once in a house. This was a temple of domestic discipline. On Dulplia, we a burglar, and you break in. You usually leave some sign of your presence. A drawer pulled out, a closet ransacked, a television missing. Here, nothing. The front door was unlocked, but there's no forced entry, no broken glass, no muddy boot prints other than yours." kunde my foot Finchley diced. Reggie knelt on the living room floor. Reggie knelt and ruined his trousers. The damp soot that immediately ruined his trousers. He pointed to the floorboards directly beneath where the body had been discovered. He said, "Naimelu bekend." Went. Parts. A shape. Lucillette, Reggie corrected. The floor under her didn't burn. Why? Only again. Because she was lying there. Awfully traumatized. I get. If you in a burning house, Pendleton, and you conscious, do you lie down in the center of the living room and wait for the drywall to collapse? Onatize. Personally, screaming into the yard kind of guy, Pendleton admitted. Con lied. Missing too, Reggie said. With a sound like a small pistol shot. She didn't run. She didn't crawl. She was already down. Let us see what the medical examiner has to say before we blame the toaster. Quantihai. The dream of the shady pines. Winter group discount. The victim, 44 years of age. A woman whose life was a testament to the pursuit of the elusive, sometimes exhausting, American dream. Owning reacher. One had to understand her daughter. Priya. Priya was 20 years old, a college student with the posture of an army general and the organizational skills of a seasoned corporate liquidator. When Reggie met Priya at the local precinct, she did not cry, offing a bee. Not because she was devastated, but because she seemed to believe that if she let her guard down in for even a second, the universe would slide further into administrative chaos. Oigenbi. My mother, Priya said, her voice steady but thin as a piece of parchment, did not believe in accidents. If she dropped a plate, she would investigate the gravity constant of the room to ensure it wasn't a structural defect in the house. Making her a remarkable woman, Reggie said, offering her a paper cup of water that had been sitting near a dusty spider plant on the Trevitan, a gemostend, what dispoistel. She was from Punjab, Priya at the cup, as if deciding whether to file it under liquid or disposable. Kwame B. A kistima a day, listening. With nothing but 2 suitcases and an incredibly optimistic view of the New Jersey transit system. My dad started as a prep cook, chopping onions until his hands were permanently scented like a stir-fry. Eventually, into a restaurant. Then, another. Then he bought a gas station. Then he bought 3 more. He worked 80 hours a week, and my mother managed the finances with an iron fist in a velvet glove. On. And the house? Wolpies. Priya said, a tiny, fragile smile breaking through her stern exterior. A brand new house in a quiet neighborhood where the grass was clipped to exactly 2 inches and the neighbors didn't play brass instruments. After 8 fan meme. She got it. We moved in last year. It was her dream. And now, Oshli, Pri's young trauma Dev, sat next to her. Dev was 17, wearing a hoodie that was 3 sizes too large, looking like a turtle attempting to retreat into its shell. Wine and conning that I shouldn't be ban. Be listening intensely. He was staring at Inveti that suggested he hoped they might say suddenly develop the ability to speak and explain the mysteries of the cosmos. Onpoi. You were the last one to see her? Dev nodded slowly, his hood shifting. Yeah. Moat left at 3 o'clock. She was fine. She was making dinner, butter chicken. She told me to be back by 6. Or she'd feed my portion to the neighbor's golden retriever, which she hated because it always defecated near her hydrangeas. Only Eggy. And where did you go? At 3 o'clock, Dev, Reggie asked, his tone casual, though his notebook was already out. Oskainbo. Dev stammered. Reggie paused. He had interviewed enough teenagers to know that "Mot don't know" was the standard response to everything from "Where did you put the car keys?" to "Who started the fire?" But in a homicide investigation, it was a particularly unhelpful phrase. Went leaning for lead. Your mother's house burned down with her inside. If you left at 3, that leaves an hour and 49 minutes unaccounted for. Mot don't know is a luxury we don't have right now. Unintellized. Devendra, tell the officer where you were, or Mot will personally tell Dad about the dent in the bumper of the Honda. Quincy bobbing. Dev swallowed hard, Bakutwat. Up. Mot was meeting Jasprit. Goosepreet. Reggie asked. On girl, Dev whispered, as if admitting to a minor treason. From school, she is not Indian. Being a dramatic sigh that could have powered a small wind turbine. Oh, for the love of Dev. Is that why you've been acting like a spy in a low-budget movie? On mom was. Devd, trusted, his voice cracking, unallowed to date. Omatize, tensely. We are even allowed to look at members of the opposite sex. Unless they have an engineering degree. And the recommendation from 3 aunts was terrified she'd find out. Mot went to the park behind the library to give Jasprit a Valentine S card. It had a picture of a puppy on it. Bly. It was very innocent. Offie took puffy card. And checked it off. We'll verify that, Dev. Don't worry, but right now, we need to talk about what might be missing from the house. Oh, Omatens. My mother didn't keep cash in the house. She thought banks were marginally more reliable than mattress stuffing, which is high praise from her. Bontoyerie. Did she wear any Asian bangles? 6 of them. She had 6 of them. They were hand-etched in Amritsar. She wore 2 of them every single day. They were like an extension of her arms. She said they reminded her of where she came from. We effective defensive weapon. If anyone ever tried to steal her purse. He nodded. We found 1 earring at the scene, Priya. But no bangles. Not on her wrists and not in the ruins. Gonna be. She would never take them off. Never. Madlably. The cold truth of the mortuary. The morgue was located in the bleach of a building that smelled permanently of bleach and regret. Omanisately, Frit, Frentery, Itently. Wasval, medical examiner, Dr. Frederick, so much time with the dead that he had forgotten how to interact with the living without sounding like he was reading an obituary. On pity. Potts. Dr. von Houten said, pulling back the sheet with the clinical detachment of a librarian opening a rare folio. Your victim did not die of smoke inhalation. Wemoli Tetlet. Reggie stood by clutched in his hand, like a protective amulet. How do you know, Fritz? Weisnendu enticed. One of Finkel, Haufenter, at the victim's nasal passage. All suit, not a speck. If you are alive, in a room filled ve kep ite. Hot black smoke you breathe. When you breathe, you inhale carbon. Your trachea looks like the inside of a chimney. Here, clean as a whistle. Well, as clean as a trachea can be under these circumstances. Match. Strug. Was struck, Reggie said. Onabi Enfield. Von Houten gently turned the victim's head, pointing to the deep tissue of the neck. Only. See these hematomas? The bruising is deep, located in the anterior neck muscles. This wasn't a sudden fall or a tragic accident. This is manual strangulation. The assailant gripped her throat from the front. The thumb was here. The four. She was choked to death, Potts. The fire was an afterthought, an attempt to turn a murder scene into an insurance claim, or at least a very messy pile of ashes. Awful highs. Reggie stared at the bruises. He felt a familiar cold anger rising in his chest. It was the same anger he felt every encountered the work of someone who thought they could erase a human life with a splash of accelerant and a box of matches. On hands, Reggie asked. Right, traumatized, said. Deep enough to open the skin. It happened right around the time of death. It's consistent with someone forcibly pulling something off her arm. Something tight. Wishing which were be. The bangles, Reggie muttered. He killed her, took the gold, and set the house on fire to cover his tracks. Louise traumatized. A classic plan, Von Houten agreed, covering the body. Though poorly executed. If you're going to burn a house down to hide a murder, you really should ensure the victim inhales a little smoke first. It makes my job much more difficult. Onschneitabi, dosidukamlit. Omantropi, omlutin. Box for the next killer, Reggie said, turning on his heel and heading back to the stairs. Boon. The legend of the arsonist believed in many things: hard work, strong coffee, and the absolute predictability of human greed. But he did not believe in coincidence. Nikolai traumatized. The next morning, Reggie sat at his desk, surrounded by flyers of the missing Jaime Karat gold bangles. He had spent the previous evening calling local pawn shops, a task that was about as productive as trying to teach a pig to play the cello. Ben Lagreen, Offi, Trite, Offi Lagay, Offi Listite, most pawn shop of the police on a good creek on a good day, and on a bad day, they suddenly lost the ability to speak English or remember where they kept their ledger. Onken. Reggie picked it up. Hot. He grunted. Ontiesen. Detective Potts? My name is Tommy App, a voice said, on the other end. Mott met a retired arson investigator for the neighboring borough of Carteret. Mott. Heard about your fire on Maplewood. Onu ebibriditit light. Reggie sat up. Carteret was a stone's throw away, a blue-collar town known for its oil refineries, its excellent diners, and its remarkably high density of suspicious property damage. We lost. What can Mott do for you, App? Reggie asked, quite traumatized. Well, Mott don't know if this is a grain of sand on the beach or the straw that's going to break your camel's back, App said, his voice carrying the distinct, gravelly rasp of a man who had spent 30 years inhaling soot. But, Mott, think you need to look at a fellow named Hafel Singh, me. Why? Ontidin. Because, App said, with a dry chuckle, with Mr. Singh, every time he rents a house, the house has an unfortunate habit of catching fire. We talking 8 fires, Potts. 8. Reggie blinked. 8 fires. Is he extremely clumsy with candles? Kunfan, clumsiness. App replied. All few were small. A box outside an air conditioner. A flower pot on a wooden deck where the insurance companies pays out a few $1,000s and doesn't ask too many questions. But the 8th one was the masterpiece. Destroyed the whole house and 2 cars in the driveway. Singh was always a tenant, Obi or nearby. Never the owner. His family members were always listed on the policies or nearby. Omelette. Chad. Sounding frustrated. He is smart. He clammed up every time Mott tried to interview him. Mott had him in the church, Potts, Auntie Nald. Mottry, just lit, put him in the front pew with the evidence Mott had had. But when Bott heard about your fire on Maplewood, and that the victim was Indian, did some digging. Singh knows the Banerjee family. Bullied how? Bintilo Ophelo. App said. He, Zen, been to the house. He's a truck driver, down on his luck, constantly scraping the bottom of the barrel, or if he knew they had money, gone looking for it. 8 fires, you say? On still quite traumatized. 8. Either the man is Lemony Snicket, suffering from an unfortunate series of events, or he is one dangerous individual who really enjoys the smell of lighter fluid. On numb. The overheating truck, I traumatized. Reggie Potts and his partner, Sergeant Leo, the Hulk Kowalski, who was actually quite small, but had once lifted a riding lawnmower off a neighbor's foot, paid a visit to the Banerjee family, pristine, now charred neighborhood, quite traumatized. Priya, meeting were in the driveway of a relative's house where they were staying. Do you know a man named Harpal Singh? It was narrowed. Harpal? Yes. He is a friend of my uncle. He came to our house a few weeks ago. My uncle was visiting, and Harpal just showed up. My father, who is very proud of what he has achieved, was showing him around. He showed him the kitchen, the master bedroom, the smart home system. Everything. Were interested. Sergeant Kowalski asked. Omatin, Trauma said. Wysento octet. He looked at everything like he was taking an inventory, Priya said, her voice dropping an octave. Gwalnagis, a fearful business. At the gas stations, he said. Where do you keep the daily receipts? My father laughed and said, we don't keep cash at home, but Harpal didn't look like he believed him. We bite forward. Dev stepped forward from hoodie, rustling. Motetave kept him too. When? When, Dev? No fire, Dev said. On February 10th. Mott was coming home from school. Harpal was standing in our driveway. He didn't ring the bell. He was just standing there, looking at the windows. Onen, what did he say? Bitty, traumatized. He said his truck got heated up, and he needed a jug of water, Dev said. I looked around, but Mott didn't see his truck anywhere. I thought maybe he parked it around the corner. So Mott gave him a gallon of water from the garage. He took it and left Grenade February. Kowalski asked, scratching his head. A truck overheating in 20-degree weather. That S some truck. A special truck, Reggie said. Or a very bad lie. Let's go find Mr. Singh. Myself. The low-key chat. Info polite. Harpal Singh lived in a small dam. Kowalski knocked on the door. They were greeted by a man who looked like he had been constructed out of spare parts from a dusty warehouse. Ortuent. He was in his late 40s, with a thick beard, weary eyes, and the general demeanor, weary eyes, of a man who had spent his life waiting for the other shoe to drop, Quivs Harpal said, his voice mild and polite. How can Mott help you, sirs? All fit a few question. Harpal, Reggie said. We doing a routine check on everyone who knew Rita Banerjee. As you know, there was a tragic fire at her house on Valentine's Day. Honestly. Yes, Harpal said, with an expression of profound, if slightly theatrical, grief. Such a tragedy, a wonderful family, very successful, very sad. Onabis, afuifikistemi. Fire, Kowalski said, leaning against the doorframe that groaned under his weight. Something about an overheating truck? Harpal said, nodding vigorously. My truck, she is very old. The radiator, it has a leak. Mott was driving by, and the temperature gauge, it went to the red. So Mott stopped to ask for water. The young boy, Dev, he was very kind. He gave me a jug. Mott put it in the radiator and drove away, traumatized. And where were you? On Valentine's Day, Harple? Reggie asked, his pencil hovering over his notebook like a hawk over a field mouse. At work, Harple said simply. Mott, I'm a truck driver. I work hard. Every day, the same. Dwayne, what time did you start? You drove all day. Then, in the afternoon, Mott went to Keyport to see a man about a tractor trailer. Mott am buying. I owe him some money, you see. Mott went to make a payment. Oni, and then, Wishnear. To my children. We had dinner, commented. Reggie nodded, writing down Keyport, tractor trailer in his book. Well, Harple, thank you for your cooperation. You've been very helpful. Of course, sirs, Harpal said, bowing slightly. Whatever you need. Mott am a simple man. Mott have nothing to hide. Untraumatized. Kowalski looked at Reggie. Well, he seems like a nice guy. Cooperative. Not nervous at all. Enchini, Reggie said, starting the engine. He is a truck driver. If he was working all day on Valentine's Day, his employer will have a log. Let's calls them. Onchne jutli, the phone call Finti. 3 minutes. The supervisor on duty was more than happy to share the details of Harpal's schedule. Paul Singh, the supervisor said. No, he didn't work on Valentine's Day. He called out, said his back was acting up and he couldn't lift a clipboard, let alone drive a rig. He had the whole day off, Quan Fentrite, and smiled. It was a small cold smile that didn't reach his eyes. Ontabu. Mott love liars, Leo, Reggie said. They make this job so much easier. If they told the truth, we'd have to do actual detective work. Quentin Chariot. The duct tape chariot. Entel agree. The next step was Keyport, New Jersey, a town that sat on the Raritan Bay and smelled of salt water, old wood, and diesel fuel. Reggie and Kowalski drove down to the used truck dealership where Harple had claimed to make his payment. Onovate Roto Ice. The dealer, a man named Bob, who wore a leather vest and had a cigar clamped between his teeth like a permanent fixture, remembered Harple vividly. Only. Yeah, Motno Singh, Bob said, spitting a bit of tobacco onto the gravel. Wrote a cab from me. 19 grand. He was supposed to pay me in full by February 10th. On the 10th, he calls me up, crying poverty. Says his truck is broken. His kids need shoes. His dog has arthritis. The usual routine, I told him. Harple, if Mort don't see at least a grand by Monday, Ubi, Mort met. The 14th, sending the tow truck to repossess the cab. Or show up on Monday? Reggie asked. Your house. Oh, he showed up, Bob said. Late afternoon. Around 5:30, 6 o'clock. He had $1,000 in cash, all $100 bills. He looked like he'd been dragged through a hedge, backward. Smelled like a brewery, too. He was sweating like a pig in a smokehouse, waving the money around like he'd just won the lottery. Runolchin afternoon. Noted. On Valentine's Day afternoon. Ban be traumatized, and he left. Told him he, ma or symptom he is still, 18 grand in the hole, and he left. Und in the key asked, what does Harpal drive when he's just not in the big rig? Soon, he's got an old, white Ford Econoline van. Bob said, real piece of junk. It's got some company name painted on the side, but he covered it up with kep, ite hat. About 12 rolls of silver duct tape. Looks like a rolling silver mummy. Winby gave a satisfying, rhythmic thump. A white van, covered in silver duct tape. Wisan. Can't miss it. Looks like a serial killer's starter pack. Palm. The red light district. Okin Lishnin. Reggie Potts sat in the basement Plum Creek Police Department, staring at a computer monitor that was emitting a high-pitched hum. Cameras about 750 feet from the Banerjee house. Reggie told Kowalski's, who Reggie told Kowalski, who was correct, trying to extract peanut butter cracker from a vending machine with a ruler. Barnaby, otherwise detained. Off, they capture light cameras that passes through the intersection of Maplewood and Route Mott. Onaby by Soldier. Entaby, Kowalkawi asked, and then the cracker ridging Adley's shoulder on Bonfum. Came in out. Fe exactly 4:49 van mem. Reggie said, fast-forwarding the footage. Let us look at the camera at 4:47. Gonna timestamp read muy sao, bon muy bay. Muy bay. Muy high. All traffic was light. A blue sedan passed. A minivan with a kayak on the roof. And then, at muy sao bon mitamnam, a vehicle entered the frame and stopped at the red light. Off nomatent. On Tromater and Duck Bend. Where a logo should have been, was a massive, jagged, rectangle of silver duct tape, reflecting the late afternoon sun like a mirror. Gonna me traumatize. Look at the brake light to into the screen. They re-flickering. On, off, off. He says, tapping the pedal. He says, anxious. He wants that light to turn green, so badly. He says, practically vibrating. Admittedly. It says him, Kowalski whispered. That says Harpal. A block away from the house, at the exact moment the fire is starting. Auntie Juan. It says him, Reggie agreed. There isn't another white van wrapped in duct tape in the entire state of New Jersey. If there is, they should both be arrested on general aesthetic principles. Onshine. The jewels of Little India. One went, batting ahead. He spied the traffic camera, and despite the lie about his schedule, Reggie knew he needed the final, unbreakable link. He needed the gold. Orby, intently. Where would he sell it? Kowalski asked, as they drove down Route Jaime Bay toward Edison, an area known locally as Little India. Obi advertised. He would go to a regular pawn shop, Reggie said, navigating through the heavy traffic. Osmai, Honkun. Hans Cross database, penny stilt. $1 for gold. And they report everything to the state database immediately. Onby, who gustorst about. 24. Jewelry that specialize in high carat Indian gold. They buy and sell 22 carat jewelry every day. Onishling yen. Ove kept what is worth, and they have the cash on hand. 3 days. Reggie, Kowalski, and a team of county detectives canvassed the stores along the bustling strip. They carried flyers, Vekepi, Tehat, high-resolution photographs of the remaining 4 bangles. Praya had provided, Winyajero, Di Geneji Gentlin. Gold was unique, a pattern of tiny, delicate leaves and geometric borders that could not be easily replicated. The store turned them. Why? No, we haven't seen them. No, we don't buy from strangers. No, please, don't block the display case. We have customers. Often Grinchies, radio crackled. Raging out crackled. It was Detective Martinez who had been assigned to the northern end of the strip. Offero fautald, onabeaten. Ass voice came through. Static, tinged but excited. Mort think we've got a winner at Taj Jewelers. The clerk remembers the bangles. Ois, a gonna bead. Reggie pushed the accelerator, ignoring Kowal's startled gasp as they took a sharp te, you raw, no, into a strip mall parking lot. ornament paint mirror. Inside, Taj, warm scent. With jasmine incense, a young woman named Mira sat behind the glass counter, looking nervous as she spoke with Martinez. Her aunt, her voice trembling slightly. It was the day after Valentine's Day. He was very impatient. He had 2 gold bangles, heavy ones, 22 carat, white. Reggie asked. Oh yes, Mira said. We weighed them. They were worth about $950. He took the cash. He didn't even argue about the price. Usually, people argue for hours over gold prices. But he just wanted the money. Oslis. Did he ask identification? Reggie asked, holding his breath. Or on his teeth. Mira smiled, a small infant look that made Reggie want to buy her a very large box of chocolates. Of course. State law. We scan the ID for every cash transaction over $500. Unbuan, Finchley Gate. Off lies. She reached under the counter, the plastic sleeves, until she found a printed receipt. Stapled to the top was a black and white photocopy of a New Jersey driver S license, unitized. Backatized, was bearded, weary-eyed, and entirely familiar. Sing, Harpal Singh, Rich whispered. The idiot used his own driver NS license to sell the murder weapon as plunder. Intonation. Well, Kowalski said, adjusting his belt. They say criminals are getting smarter. But thankfully, Harpal didn't get the memo. Unisliti. The interrogation of the arsonist. Waning and taitized. The interview room at the Plum Creek Police Department was cold, sterile, and smelled of old floor wax. Harpal Singh sat at the metal table, his hands folded in his lap, looking like a man who had merely stopped by to ask for directions. He sat across from him. He didn't bring a notepad. He brought a laptop and a large, velvet-lined box. Quite traumatized. Harpal, Reggie said, his voice quiet, almost friendly. We've had some interesting developments since we last spoke. We found some things. We talked to some people. Oh, Hobie, Harpal said, his eyes scanning the room. That is good, sir. Mott. Hope you find who did this terrible thing to the Banerjee family. On the laptop and turned it toward Harpal. Let us start with this. Condomin. Finchley said. The video showed the white Ford Econoline van. Its silver duct tape gleaming under the traffic lights at Maplewood and Route Mott, exactly 1 block from the fire. His face didn't change, but Reggie noticed a tiny muscle in his jaw twitch. That is a van, sir. Nen. Fiesen. Many people have white vans. Only gen tukert. Unless there is a national shortage of paint that Mott met not aware of. But let us move on. Komidopi, Wisniken. At Howard Townaby, the velvet traumatized listen. And placed a piece of paper on the table. It was the sales receipt from Taj Jewelers, complete with the photocopy of Harpal's driver's license. Often feebly. Often tenting firmly tently. Into the name on the receipt. She's a very nice girl. She works at Taj Jewelers in Edison. She remembers you, Harpal. She remembers you selling her 2 solid gold bangles on February 15th. The day after Rita Banerjee was murdered. And paper. Harpal stared for the first time. His polite facade began to crack. His breathing became shallow, and his chest rose and fell in rapid, jerky movements. Gonbolde. Harpal stammered. From a man in the street. A stranger. We gem you tenbitly. Reggie said, leaning forward. Until his face was inches from Harpal's. Oikolbu Street. Etched head, 22 carat, gold bangles. From Punjab on the street. on the day to pay off weight. A ball for toitais, it white rom on the tight. And you just happen to buy them for 8 hours later and sell them to pay off the debt on your truck. The same truck that you claimed was overheating in 20-degree weather in the Banerjee's driveway. Ondit enticed. Harpal didn't answer. He stared at the metal table, his lips pressed together into a thin, white line. Groping happened. Harpal, Reggie said, his voice dropping to a harsh whisper. On sympathize. You were in debt. You owed $19,000 on a truck you could afford. You tried to start 8 different fires to collect insurance money, Matthijs, but you were too clumsy to even do that right. So you went looking for an easier target. You remembered the Banerjees. You saw their beautiful house. You saw the gold on Rita's wrists. Rwandi's money. Hands began to shake. Quantives. On Valentine's Day, Reggie continued, on Fabo Matthijs. You knew Priya was at college. You knew Dev was out. You knocked on the door, and because she knew you, she opened it. You went inside, and you asked her where the cash was. But there was no cash. Offer. Who? So you traumatized. Harpal, until she stopped moving. You ripped the gold off her wrists, scratching her skin. And then you set the living room on fire, thinking the ashes would hide what you did. Whispered. No, Mott Dinte. Way a bad arsonist. Harpal, Reggie said, his voice ringing out in the small room. Kontigi traumatized. A bad truck driver and a bad liar. You did not even wait for her to breathe the smoke. The medical examiner knew she was dead before the first match was struck. And now we have the gold. We have your van on camera. We have your signature on the sales slip. It's over. Harpal. The game is done. Harpal looked up. The polite, simple truck driver was gone. In his place was a man whose eyes were cold, dark, and entirely empty. You want a lawyer, Harpal said. For his laptop. Vekep te hat. A sharp snap. That's a very good idea, Harpal. In fact, you should probably get 2. Muimot. The verdict and the hydrangeas on Plum Creek Municipal Courthouse, surpassing even the Lum Creek Municipal Courthouse, surpassing Comutu, but Haishin the height, surpassing the great zoning dispute of Haishin the Fasht, the Haishin Caution to Haishin the Loshning to Waishin the Bad, traumatize. With members of the local community, journalists, and firefighters who wanted to see the Plum Creek firebug finally face the music. Koshit case, the prosecution methodical, unyielding and evidence. Reggie Potts testified for 3 hours, presenting the traffic footage, the gold receipts, the medical examiner's findings, and the history of Harpal's 8 previous unfortunate fires. All duidi the Finshu Gotist. The defense Stridod argues, was a victim of circumstance, a man who simply had a habit of buying gold from strangers and parking near burning houses. But the jury was not amused. Traumatized. It offered them exactly 2 hours and 14 minutes to return a verdict of guilty on all counts. First-degree murder, aggravated arson, theft, and hindering apprehension. Untais traumatize. On the day of the sentencing, Reggie Potts sat in the back row of the gallery. Priya stood before the judge, her shoulders straight, her voice clear as a bell. Oni, life. Priya said, looking directly at Harpal, who sat at the defense table. Vekep itehat, his head bowed, rolling no matter. This man tried to erase her life for $1,000. And a truck he didn't even know how to drive. He failed. He didn't erase her. He only erased himself. Waiting in Tasher, Hebanabi as he said. Ikifeit. Barnesfinnet traumatized. The judge sentenced Singst to life in prison, without the possibility of parole, ensuring that the only fires he would see for the rest of his days would be the ones in the prison kitchen. Otong in Gende. As the courtroom cleared, Reggie walked out into the crisp autumn air. Priya and Dev were waiting for him on the steps, giving him a small, neat envelope. Detective Popot's Priya envelope. On behalf of my family, we want to thank you. You did what you promised. You found the truth. Wility het. Priya, Reggie said, accepting the envelope with a nod. Your mother was a remarkable woman. She deserved nothing less. Ontinusti Bine. Dev's traumatized. Dev stepped forward, his hoodie filing a young man who looked like he had finally grown into his own skin. The neighbor Esav, golden retriever, came into our yard yesterday, detective. He was near the hydrangeas. Quay smiled. What did you do, Dev? Waymot. Dev said, a tiny grin. Breaking through. Mott, he think Mom would have been proud. Only traumatized. Mott met she would have, Reggie said, putting his hands in his pockets and turning toward his car. Mott met sure she would have. Guaitenduru Kanend, Ristentary in Nolanend. He walked down the steps, his trench coat for the next call, the next mystery, and whatever ridiculous thing the citizens of Plum Creek decided to do next. Quapter Maud. The Great Scone disaster of Oakhaven Estates. Bolligace. The afternoon air in Oakhaven Hetley. Estates was normally scented with lavender, freshly cut ryegrass, and the subtle underlying aroma of quiet generational wealth, ontrally to had traumatized. That the local police department's most harrowing case of the previous year involved a rogue flock of Canada geese occupying the 8th hole of the country club. Oimus Grupenpi, Agben. All of that changed at Bonmichin Van Mame on a chilly Tuesday in mid-February, when the sky above Elm Street turned the color of a charred marshmallow. On a ties. A chin-mort call had come in from a neighbor, Mrs. Gable, who was so startled by the sight of flames licking the lower branches of the neighborhood's historic oaks that she initially tried to report a highly unauthorized giant backyard barbecue, gently explaining that a 30-foot wall of fire part did not constitute a standard culinary gathering. Sent the engines. Oil Chief Arthur Siren Pendleton was a man who took his job with a level of seriousness usually reserved for heart surgeons or classical oboists, Uti said. When his truck arrived at Murray-Bon, immediately, first, the attached garage was empty of vehicles. Second, the smoke pouring from the front door was so thick it looked like an industrial carpet had been stuffed into a blender and set on fire. Hoove. Pendleton roared to his crew, adjusting a helmet that was slightly too large for his head. Even if their car is teeth here, they could be taking an exceptionally deep nap. Move, move, move. Again, Barnaby, crew. Tatleys, the croupiers who spent most of their off-duty hours debating the merits of various protein powders, charged through the front door. They were immediately swallowed by a dark, sulfurous fog, become smoke that didn't just block your vision, it aggressively tried to negotiate with your lungs. Through the shifting black curtains of the living room, Firefighter Higgins saw something that made him freeze. It was a shape, perfectly still, lying on the rug near the hearth. We got a civilian. Higgins yelled, his voice muffled by his respirator. Well, it looks like a mannequin, Chief. Ennaby figure out into the manicured front lawn. The contrast was stark. Out, the emerald green grass, the bright red fire engines, and the quiet, unmoving form of Beatrice Bia Butterfield, only Kentelisgen. The paramedics rushed forward, clinking in a frantic rhythm, but their efforts were merely a professional formality. Beatrice, the reigning champion of the Tri-County Bake-Off and the undisputed matriarch of Oakhaven's culinary scene, was gone. On Katais. It was a tragic accident, perhaps an oven left unattended, or a faulty wire behind the antique grandfather clock that Beatrice so cherished. But Detective Inspector Archie Penrose, did not have an untrained eye, or feeling in Breatley, Hooley too. He had an eye that had spent people wished he wouldn't entry. Traumatize. Archie stood on the curb, nursing a paper cup of lukewarm chicory coffee that tasted like wet cardboard, on disting a beer. Hoot. He was a retired back investigator who had been dragged back into service by the local prosecutor's office because the town's current detective force consisted entirely of two 20-somethings whose primary qualification was knowing how to operate the department's social media accounts. Altoldy. It seems like Chief Pendleton said, wiping a streak of black soot from his nose, which only succeeded in making him look like a theatrical chimney sweep. Everyday run, a kitchen fire that got out of hand, walked Archie murmured, his boots squelching in the damp grass. He stepped over a yellow hose and peered inside the charred remains of the living room. Weakly. Despite the heavy soot coating every surface like a layer of dark velvet, there was no sign of a struggle, no overturned chairs, no drawers pulled open by a panicked burglar. The drywall had contained the worst of the heat, but the room's contents were ruined. No forced entry. Archie muttered to himself. He pulled out a small, spiral-bound notebook and a pen that he had retrieved from his pocket after some difficult digging. The front door was unlocked. No broken windows. A very polite fire, wouldn't you say? Arthur? Omlishing a bee. Polite, Pendleton scoffed. It nearly took the oak trees with it. Quined it intating. Yes, but look at the victim's position, Archie said, pointing toward the center of the room. Traumatized. Fro I Frin, he found on the floor. If you re-caught in a fire, and you re-conscious, you generally don't lie down in a perfect straight line and wait for the smoke to find you. You crawl, you scratch at the walls, you try to reach the handle. She did none of those things. Knelt on the ruined floorboards, ignoring the damp soot that immediately hogged Rory trousers. He pointed to a distinct unburned patch of wood where Beatrice's body had been lying. On Finchley, Archie said. It means she was already down on the floor before the fire took over the room. Before the smoke even started. Why? Ophonym Pendleton suggested. Inhaled too much smoke before she could react. Traumatized. Let's see what the Corey traumatized. Archie replied, rising with a groan that came straight from his lower back. But my coffee tells me this wasn't an accident, and my coffee is very rarely wrong about these things. Busingendoi. The alibi of the forbidden kale. Onjua City Company, the Butterfield family. A butter thing of highly successful was the closest thing Oakhaven Estates had to royalty, assuming royalty was betchen of highly successful bakery cafes and 3 gas stations along the state highway, Eastnan, Ili. With her husband, Alistair, they had started with a single commercial oven in the rent garage, producing scones that were described by the local paper as almost spiritual in density. Over the next 2 decades, they built an empire, Wishy said. Alistair managed the finances with the quiet panic of a man who did understand how spreadsheets worked, while Beatrice ran the kitchens with an iron whisk. Archie sat in the family's temporary residence suite at the local courtyard Marriott, observing the survivors. Unsingingatly, daughter was currently pacing the carpet like a corporate lawyer. Like a corporate lawyer preparing to cross-examine a witness. No form of flight. Me, yindetably, dromontide. She was dressed in a tattered navy blazer that seemed entirely too formal for a hotel hand, occasionally tapping the screen with an aggressive click. Mojia, mother did not believe in accidents, detective. Clementine said, her voice sharp enough to slice cheese. No pipe leaked. It was because the plumber was a charlatan. If a fire started, it was because someone had failed to follow the municipal safety codes. Motve kept a note to know who is responsible. Quite traumatized. Alistair Butterfield sat on the edge of the bed, looking entirely hollowed out. He was a small man with a mustache that looked like a caterpillar that had given up on life. He didn't speak. He merely nodded whenever Clementine made a particularly forceful point. Clementine, Archie asked, "Come the Tanner's drum in the bathroom," attempting to have a nervous breakdown. Clementine said, not looking up from her screen. One. He has always been the emotional one. Mother used to say he had the constitution of a souffle, very pretty, but prone to collapsing if someone closed the oven door too quickly. Onchin Burge. He was wearing a green hoodie that was several sizes too large, making him look like a very sad turtle. Osif con by gently. Pip, Archie said afternoon. You were the last person to see your mother. Swallow hard. Pip Cromat. Yes, sir. Mott left the house at 3 o'clock. She was fine. She was making her signature lavender shortbread for the weekend market. The house smelled amazing. No smoke, no fire, just butter and lavender. 3 o'clock, Pip. Wrote Mott. Mott had a study group, Pip said. Ovlis Doffet. Archie leaned forward. He had spent his career, Archie, dealing with teenagers, and he knew that the word study group was almost always a synonym for doing something that would make my parents extremely angry. A study group, Archie repeated. On a Tuesday afternoon, in mid-February, Umend, discussing geometry, Umend colting a lilir. And where did this geometric discussion take place? It was in the library, or near it. Actually, it was in the park behind the library. West group. Pip, wombatized. Pip's face went through several shades of red before settling on a deep plum-like purple. Just some friends. Bane Machigay. Pip Clementine tablet. Tell the detective where you were, or Mott will tell father about the suspicious charges on your iTunes account for those medieval strategy games. Ons you. Kep ite hat absolute betrayal. I was meeting Penelope. Archie asked. Orky, who had traumatized, Shies, from the organic kale farming commune. On the other side of the highway, Pip whispered, as if admitting to a minor war crime. Allowed to date, especially not someone from the commune. Mother said their farming practices were pseudo-scientific, and that Penelope's father once used an uncertified compost hatia pay, near our delivery route. If mother knew Mott was seeing her, what inays. Until the next millennium. Opley. So you went to the park to meet Penelope, Archie said. And you stayed there until when? Hunchimbal. Until 5, Pip said. Mott can show you the text messages. We were sharing a gluten-free muffin. It was terrible, but Mott ate it to be polite. All time on his watch. The Chin Mott call came in at Bon Zer Bon Michin Food Fan Mem. If you were in the park until 5, and we can verify that, with Penelope, you re-clear Pip. But it means your mother was alone in that house when whoever did this arrived. Incident. Who did what? I thought it was an accident. Orchis. Archie said quietly. The coroner just called. There was no soot in your mother's lungs, Pip. She wasn't breathing when the fire started. Binovel. Rolling. When? Clementine Barlentenpi, in company Archie. Merosen de Blies, walkthrough Ossendis. Merosen Denti, the walkthrough, had volunteered to accompany a fair, primarily because she did not trust the police to inventory the property correctly. Munibani. Clementine explained. As they stepped over a blackened floorboard, she didn't keep cash in the house. She thought paper money was unhygienic, but she had assets. Significant assets. Quine Kifinchlen cabinets. Shining his flashlight into the ruined kitchen cabinets. Onginetized. They were a gift from her, Clementine said. In Amritsar, solid 22-karat gold, hand-engraved with scenes from traditional Punjabi folklore. She had 6 of them. They weren't just decorative. Omprikite traumatized. She actually used them for special orders. She said, the weight of the gold gave the pastry a superior lamination. Ofstu said. How large were they? All traumatized. About 12 inches long, but very heavy, Clementine said. 2 of them she kept in the kitchen display rack. The other 4 were in a small, fireproof strongbox in her closet. Oswine Bentiestly. The metal hooks were empty. He shone his light on the counter below. There was a faint, clean circular outline in the suit where something heavy had been resting. Of the autopsy, Archie said, the only piece of jewelry recovered from your mother was a single gold earring. The rolling pin. Are they still in the strongbox? Wendwin Tybet. Clementine. The closet door was open. The strongbox, a heavy grey unit that looked like it had survived a nuclear blast, sat on the shelf. The door was slightly ajar. Rufintle, traumatized. She never left this unless Clementine said, her voice finally losing its icy composure. Never. 1. The marriage traumatized. Inside were several teaspoons, a marriage certificate, and a collection of silver teaspoons. Unshan. Were gone. Voltimpois. We have a motive, a highly specific, extremely heavy motive. Who can know eve kept about these rolling pins, Clementine? Odumind, all might traumatized. Everyone, all might. Everyone, she said, bitterly. She showed them to anyone who came into the house. She was proud of them. She said they were proof that you could come to this country with nothing and eventually roll your dough with solid gold. Ontlai traumatized. We Luglunga need to check the local antique dealers and gold buyers, Archie said. A 12-inch gold rolling pin is not something you can easily slip into a pawn shop without raising an eyebrow or two, or Clementine said, tapping her tablet. Mott will email them to you immediately. If we find out some low life has melted them down to make tooth crowns, Mott will personally sue them into the next century. Boone, the fire whisperer of Oakhaven, or Enchantly, Oven. A drafty room in the basement of the municipal building that smelled of old tax records was invaded by a man who looked like he had been constructed entirely out of pipe cleaners and enthusiasm. Barnaby Sparky Finch, the man said, offering a hand that was covered in small, pink burn scars. Mott met the retired fire warden for the next county over. Mott heard about the Butterfield fire. Mott had to call you. Omit, Archie said. Modef seen your name on some old reports. You read a fellow who wrote a 300-page monograph on the thermal dynamics of chimney sweeps, on 42 pages. Actually, Finch said, proudly, sitting down on the edge of Archie's desk, with diagrams. But that's not why Mott met here. Archie, have you ever heard of a man named Gideon Gentry, on Finling? Is he a local? On the way pause. He's a chimney sweep and an artisanal firewood deliveryman, Finch said, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. But in my book, he, a firebug. A real artist of the hearth. Over the last 5 years, Gentry has been associated with 8 different house fires in this region. Interest peaked. 8? That's a very active chimney, Winby and the car. Every single time Gentry was either the tenant of the property, a frequent visitor, or had recently performed preventative maintenance on the flue, Finch said. Yet few were small. A bird's nest in a chimney that accidentally caught fire, a pile of rags in a basement. The insurance companies paid out, Gentry moved on. But the 8th one destroyed an entire historical farmhouse in the valley. 2 cars in the driveway, completely melted. One, and he was never charged. In head. He's clever, Finch said, shaking his head. Pine sap, lin, seed oil, things that don't show up on a standard gas chromatograph. He clammed up whenever Mott tried to interview him. But he's a wolf in sheep's clothing, Archie. He has got the town convinced he is just a harmless with local who loves the smell of birch wood, built family. Archie asked, Ois and cherry wood. To their house last month, Finch said. Mott checked the municipal delivery permits. He was on their property, Archie. He has been inside that house. Honor a geometlist. A man who loves fires, who has been associated with 8 suspicious blazes, and who recently delivered wood to a house that subsequently burned down with the owner inside. If it walks like a duck, and it quacks like a duck, Finch complotize. It is this usually a duck that has been marinated in lighter fluid, Finch completed. On the nam, the duct tape chariot, in foiling cabinet, Annetly, Archie and Sergeant Kowalski. A man who looked like he had been built specifically up 3 flights of stairs. Found Gideon Gentry at his workshop on the edge of town. Honest. The workshop was a chaotic jumble of iron grates, soot-stained brushes, and stacks of firewood that looked like they had been piled by a drunk beaver. In the center of the yard sat a white Ford Econoline van that was held together almost entirely by silver duct tape, while the rust will do well, russet lobby across the rear bumper, and in a massive, glittering X across the side panel, where a business logo had once been. Wamatized, adequately dermatized. Gentry himself was a large, jolly man with a beard that looked like a bird, had nested in it, and subsequently abandoned the property. He was currently drinking tea from a chipped mug, looking entirely unconcerned with the world. Upon mission. Detective, Gentry boomed, his voice echoing off the corrugated iron roof. Come to buy some cedar. It is excellent for the moth problem, or perhaps you need your chimney swept. Mott do a special rate for the police, mostly because Mott don't want you boys checking my taillights, stepping over a pile of rusty iron grates. We actually here to talk about Tuesday afternoon, the 14th of February, in Speta. But his eyes narrowed slightly. Valentine's Day. A beautiful day for love, or, in my case, a beautiful day for delivering 3 cords of split hickory to the widow Higgins. Why do you ask? Intelligently. Where were you at 4:30? On Tuesday afternoon, Gideon. It was at work, of course. Gentry said, gesturing to the yard. Stacking, hauling, sweating. The life of a woodman is never done. Oceaned. And did you make any deliveries that afternoon? Uri Chain. No, no, Gentry said, shaking his head. Mott was right here until 5. Then Mott went to Keyport to see a gentleman about a new chainsaw. My current one has a chain that keeps slipping off the bar, which is very dangerous for the toes, you see. Mayshli. From here, Archie noted. Who did you see? Named Bob. At the tractor depot, Gentry said, on my account. I owe him some money for a log splitter Maud bought on credit last autumn. He's a very impatient man, Bob. He threatened to repossess my splitter if Maud did bring him at least $500 by Tuesday night. Honor kite. And did you bring him the money? Wing indeed. Gentry said proudly. $500 in crisp, clean bills. Mott met a man of my word, detective. Ossenbergen. Where did you get $500? In cash. On a Tuesday afternoon, Gideon. Formatly be. Gentry said, tapping his nose with a soot-stained finger. A penny saved is a penny earned, as the old saying goes. Be an hintlit. Archie realized. Archie nodded, log splitter, in his notebook. Well, thank you for your time, Gideon. You had been very cooperative. Posloismoti. Gentry said, always, waving his mug as they walked back to their patrol car. Listening traumatized. As soon as they were out of Kowalski, Leo called the tractor depot in Keyport. Let us find out if Bob received his $500. Bob took exactly 2 minutes. I betul to my mal. Guam again. Yeah, Gentry was here, Bob said over the crackling line. Komataitais. He arrived around 5:30, but he looked like he'd been chased by a swarm of bees. He was sweating, smelled like smoke, and his hands were shaking. Shaking so hard. He dropped 2 of the bills in the gravel. I told him. He has still $3,000 in the hole. Of his tune again. But he laughed and said he was coming into some gold soon. Bont. Gold, Bob. I might. Nah, just said he had a business partner who didn't know the guy was drunk too, or high on wood smoke. Hard to tell with him. Hung up the phone and looked out the window. A new partner who didn't know they were partner yet. Leo, let's go find those traffic cameras. Konshin again. Chapter Sao. The red light district of Elm Street. Waltidized. The municipal building S basement was cold, but the computer monitor was warm, projecting a steady, pale blue glow onto Archie's tired face. Owning Offenkantais. The township. Last month, Archie explained to Kowalski, who was currently trying to extract a peanut butter cracker from a vending machine with a ruler. It says about 750 feet from the Butterfield house. Went through there. Kowalski asked, forwarding the digital tape. The timestamp read, Muy sao bon muy lam muy hai. On Tuesday, February muy bon, tient. Onti tomairis. The traffic was sparse, a local delivery truck, a teenager recently, on a moped, and then, at Mirisao Bonmi Bainam, a vehicle entered the frame and stopped at the red light. On van. Oslu Taisperby. A massive glycelofen tape. Across the side panel, duct tape reflected the late afternoon sun like a beacon. The driver's window was open, and through the glass they could clearly see the bushy, soot-stained beard of Gideon Gentry, often the Frenched irregular in a franfaint, irregular rhythm. Komatai slice. Archie said, pointing to the screen. They flickering. On, off, on, off. He sat itching to move. He is terrified that light is going to turn green before the fire trucks start rolling down the street. Olshita said, his ruler clattering to the floor. He was right there. 2 minutes before the Chinchamuy mode call, Unsientu lights. Until 5, Archie said. Mort do love a suspect who provides his own silver-plated evidence. But we still need the gold, Leo. We can charge him with murder based on a duct tape van and a bad alibi. Wenchleys. Where would he go with gold rolling pins? Kowalski asked. You can exactly melt those down in a fireplace. To Keyport, Archie said, and on the way back he would have passed through the commercial district of Edison. There is a section there known as Little India. It has 24 different jewelry shops that specialize in high-carat Indian gold. They buy, they sell, they trade. And unlike the local pawn shops, Quantromatli, they know exactly 2 carat gold is worth. Quando cased. Kowals is dead. Bay, the antique shop standoff, Guduer Puhibirishan. Cert was a tedious exercise in polite rejection. Store after store turned them away with shakes of the head and looks of mild suspicion. Onpishli said. No, we don't buy from strangers, one shopkeeper said. No, we haven't seen any gold rolling pins. If we did, we would have remembered. Rolling dough, vekep, itit hat gold, is a very old-fashioned luxury. Offerwise. Brightly lit boutique, called Saraswati, fine jewels. The young clerk behind the counter blinked when Archie showed her the photograph of the engraved rolling pins. On my skide, Predit. Mott, know these, she said, her voice dropping to a whisper. A man brought them in on Wednesday morning. He was very dirty. He had soot under his fingernails and smelled like a campfire. He said they were family heirlooms, but he didn't even know what the engravings represented. Quinby know, Herbrit? Archie asked, his heart doing a small, professional dance. Been traumatized. Yes, the clerk said. My manager bought them for $1,500. He thought they were beautiful. They re currently in the back room, being appraised for our display case. Authentication. Kowalski asked, Instasen, and pulled out, reached a leather-bound logbook. Of course. State law. We scan the ID for any cash transaction over $500. One nodely tied eyes. Of a New Jersey driver S license. Were quite traumatized. The face staring back at Archie was bearded, wild-eyed, and entirely familiar. Wandan Aif intently. Wilpins. Archie asked. We under traumatized. The clerk went into the back and returned with a velvet-lined tray. On it lay 2 solid gold, hand-engraved rolling pins, their surfaces glittering under the halogen lights. The intricate scenes of Punjaba harvest festivals were perfectly visible, completely untouched by the soot of Elm Street. Wind, Archie said, his voice quiet but absolute. We have the gold. We have the ID. We have the van. One tied. The interrogation of the firebug. Off ties. Gideon Gentry did not look like an international art thief when he sat in the interview room at the county jail. He looked like a man who had been interrupted during a very pleasant nap. Wander, one Benaldenby, Gentry said, his voice echoing. Off the concrete walls. Have you come to tell me my tail lights are fixed? Or perhaps you found some more firewood that needs splitting? Ontinis. Archie sat down across from him, placing the velvet-lined tray on the table. He removed the cloth, revealing the 2 gold rolling pins. With haste. Gentry's smile faltered for a fraction of a second, his eyes darting toward the heavy metal door. Or, very beautiful, aren't they, Gideon? Archie asked. They weigh about 3 pounds each. Solid 22-karat gold. Hand engraved in Amritsar. The clerk at Saraswati Fine Jewels says you sold them to her for $1,500 on Wednesday morning, ending in a B. Mott found them, Gentry said, his voice rising in pitch. In a dumpster behind the bakery. Someone must have thrown them away. One, finished they. Archie scoffed. A family throws away $6,000 worth of solid gold heirloom rolling pins in a dumpster behind a bakery, and you just happened to be rummaging through it 5 minutes later. While your van was parked at the red light on Elm Street at Bon Ze Bonmi Bay Foot Van Mame on Tuesday, Omsi dramatized. Archie turned the laptop screen toward Gentry, showing the traffic camera footage. Look at the X of duct tape, Gideon. Look at the bearded man behind the wheel. That SU. A block away from Beatrice Butterfield's house. 2 minutes before her neighbors called the fire department. Omni B. Gentry stared at the screen, his chest rising and falling in rapid, shallow breaths. The jolly, eccentric woodman was gone, replaced by a man whose eyes were suddenly very sharp and very cold. Ontainduner. Maud did not mean to hurt her, Gentry whispered, his voice losing its booming quality. Committee again. Be still. Maud went to get the money. Noive kept, she had the gold. Maud seen it when Maud delivered the wood. She was always showing it off, bragging about how successful they were. Maud owed Bob $500. Maud was going to lose my lock splitter, Andre said. Archie said. And she caught you, all to his lead. Gentry said, his head dropping into his hands, all dramatized. She started screaming. She said Maud was a common thief and that she'd have me run out of town. Maud grabbed her. I wanted her to stop screaming. Maud they. Not think Maud was holding her that hard. But then she went quiet. She stopped moving. Oh, you took the gold, Archie said, and set the room on fire to hide your tracks. Gold krona Tentleys. Gentry muttered, his fingers twitching. It eats everything, it leaves nothing but ash. Maud thought the room would go up, and everyone would think she'd left a towel near the stove. It was supposed to be an accident. Offer you mean Libby. But you a chimney sweep, Gideon, Archie said gently. You should know better. Always leaves a trace, especially when it's not in the lungs of the victim. Or be few traumatized. Sergeant Kowalski, with a small satisfying click. Sergeant Kowalski will help you with the paperwork. Maud, believe you look be spending the next few decades in a place where the only chimneys are on the roof and the doors don't have handles on the inside. Whiten. The sweet taste of justice in vehicle, Amached. 3 months later, the try in the gym of the local high school. The air was filled with the smell of cinnamon, vanilla, and the competitive tension of 62 different amateur bakers. Repose her Potterfield. Stood behind the display table of posture, as straight as a ruler. She was wearing her signature navy blazer, but on her wrist she wore a single thick gold bangle that had been rescued from the family's strongbox. Genby, one dying. Walked up, his corduroy trousers looking remarkably clean for once. The lavender shortbread took first prize. Pip did the baking. He managed to avoid collapsing. The dough, which Maud considered a minor miracle. Onisi Kennetly, Idlis Nicholas. Looking next to her, and more like a young man who had found his calling. He was currently sharing a slice of lemon tart with Penelope, who had sneaked away from the organic kale booth to offer her congratulations. Wianabe, Viet Hendros. Alistair, Butter Penrose said, shaking Archie's hand, with a grip that was surprisingly firm. We wanted to thank you. The house is being rebuilt. We're putting in a state-of-the-art sprinkler system and a chimney that does to require sweeping. On wise investment. Alistair, Archie said, smiling. He looked down at the blue ribbon resting next to the plate of shortbread, and the gold rolling pins intricately. At the bank, Clementine said, her eyes twinkling. From now on we roll our dough with stainless steel. It is much more hygienic and far less attractive to deliverymen with an excess of silver duct tape. On the plate took a piece of traumatize. Archie, albeit, and the closed. His eyes, it was rich, buttery, and had just the right hint of lavender. "On light a gromanatai," Archie said. Turning back toward the exit, it's almost spiritual in density, into a bright, traumatized. His hands in his pockets, entirely satisfied, with a world where the only thing burning was the oven, and the only smoke was the sweet, aromatic scent of success. Initial quest. To write a comedy novel of at least number quest, namurkai. Home words based on the provided script often trait. Enhancing, developing characters, enhancing comedic elements, and creating a dramatic plot. Often, will be matite.